Kyle Klingman with FloWrestling. Welcome to another edition of Women's Wrestling Weekly. Joined by Kid in a Candy Store, Scott Beck. Scott, we have so much to dive into, and it starts with the Women's Warrior Open. We'll start at 138 pounds, a loaded bracket across the board, and we got what we wanted. We got an epic final, 5-3. Kolawole from Nigeria. We can talk about the Nigerian Olympians that came to William Penn, but Kolawole against Taina Fernandez, still a 15-year-old. She wins 5-3. Kolawole, Esther Kolawole is a 2024 Olympian. She is a 2024 U23 world bronze medalist. Took Macy Kilty to the wire and then ended up getting pinned with the last minute to go, was up 3-1. But this was a massive result. What was your takeaways from watching that match?
We're always trying to benchmark, keeping in mind she is only 15, but like where Fernandez is, because she, really dominates people. This was a good benchmark. Kolawole is very tough. She was also U23 in 2021. She first hit my radar. She was at 57 kilos in Belgrade, and she took a bronze there. And I thought she was very physical and very tough. And watching Fernandez wrestle against her, Fernandez, I would argue, was an aggressor for a lot of the match. Kolawole got to her legs early in a single, and then Fernandez adjusted to that in the second period. She didn't get on the same shot. Fernandez was taking ground, so I was very impressed. This was a good benchmark. Kolawole is very good, has very good accolades at senior level tournaments. And, Fernandez continues to impress. Again, we don't want to put pressure on her. She's a 15-year-old, but this is good to see. I just hope that, she doesn't wrestle too much and overcompete. I think the tendency is to see where you are. She seems like she just loves the sport. It's gung-ho. But, she's got a lot of time to develop, and I'm sure, losing a match like this 5-3, she was losing early and then kind of came back, almost got a lace. I think there's a lot of takeaways, and she'll have a lot to work on, which is what you need. So it was impressive to me. Kolawole is a true physical senior, and it was incredible to watch.
And as we're talking about Taina Fernandez, we are judging her at a very high standard at a senior level, keeping in mind again that she's 15 years old. I think we have to repeat here that she has two known losses against women. Okay. There's a 14-year-old against a 28-year-old, Alex Town, who was a U23 world champion, going against an Olympian who's 2024 Olympian and Kolawole. That's two known losses that she has, and she has an incredible hit list already. Can't speak highly enough about what she's doing at this age.
Yeah, and I just think we just need to keep that in mind, give her time to develop and not, try to, but we do judge her to the standard because she's wrestling people, at that standard, and she's beating everybody else. She's the hit list is huge in college. And these two losses are both to, U23 world medalists who have wrestled in senior world championships or the Olympics. So, but I was impressed, again, just the adjustments she did. I like she was taking ground in the tie like Thomas Gilman does, creeping forward, adjusting. We're just going to keep watching it. I just hope she doesn't, just takes her time, doesn't overcompete, and kind of just enjoys the ride and keeps getting better.
And by the way, she judges herself by that standard. I know she has high standards in talking to her, so she wants to seek the best competition. She wants to wrestle the best. She's not shying away from anything. And if anything, she's seeking all of this out so she can see where she is. So commendable to her.
Yeah, and our coach, obviously. Yeah, absolutely. I just,
Hey,
just want to see her just be patient,
we'll
stay healthy.
continue, we'll continue to talk about Women's Warrior Open, but we'll digress into what William Penn just got. They got those two Olympians in their lineup. So credit to Jake Cadle. He went on the recruiting trail, got two Nigerian Olympians in Kolawole, who we talked about, and Christiana Ogunsanya, who won the Warrior Open at 117 pounds. This is a big move because I don't know that they're quite there with Life University and the NAIA side. I think Life has more balance right now, but when you look at what William Penn has right now with two Olympians, and I think they have to be the favorite at 117 and 138 right now to win, you bring in Caitlin Davis, who's a returning national champion. Mia Palumbo probably won't be ready, but if you had her at 110, you have to say she's the favorite. And then you have some pieces in place. They have the top end firepower. I just don't know if they can be right there with Life University's balance 12 deep. But this is a great formula. If you want to be the best, maybe you have to go outside the United States.
Yeah, I mean, any way you can get people. I mean, credit to him to get both these athletes. I remember when Lee Miracle had Kayla Miracle Campbellsville, and then he got Grace Bullen in, and they were both in the same weight class. Where they moved around and jumped around, but they were both pretty much had competed against each other. There's a history of Nigerians wrestling for other countries. Daniel Agali, Olympic gold medalist with epic semifinal match against Lincoln McElravy in the Olympics to win a gold medal. And, you bring in these foreigners, you have Baez de Leon, who is a very solid wrestling senior world championships at King. And, if you can get these athletes, it's really a great experience for everybody. You're giving these athletes a chance from a totally different culture to come over here, see the United States, interact with people. I think the other athletes grow from their perspectives on life and things like that. And, credit to him. I don't think at the moment they have the firepower. I don't think they have the top to bottom depth against Life, but they're very formidable.
And this will set up a showdown. If you remember Iowa Public Television, when they had all the Iowa duels on, they're kind of going back to that. They're going to actually have the William Penn versus Grandview duel on Iowa Public Television on February 11th. So that's going to be a huge showdown because Grandview made it to the finals of the national duels. So circle that one to be able to watch. But as we look at what happened for Ogunsanya, she had a nice tournament. She teched Schufelt, who's up a weight. She's a national runner-up at 110, so she's moved up to 117, and then also techs Estrada. So you really do, when you look at those results from the Nigerians, they're in a good position already, and I think they're only going to improve.
Kolawole looked like she wasn't in, she faded a little bit in the second period, so probably she can get, in better shape. And I think she will as she trains here. And, credit to that tournament. There were some solid weight classes. We talk about Kolawole and Fernandez, but you also had Wapalami, Estrella Beauchamp, who's a national champion in that weight class. And you had one of the McBride sisters, in that weight. So these are solid people, in that weight class. And this tournament, it's just as a tribute to the growth of women's wrestling. It's just another tournament that is very solid and getting tougher. And the more, it's not just one good tournament a year or two. There's a bunch of them right now, and they're only going to get tougher.
And it seems like right now there's the big three tournaments that aren't the national duels or the national championships or the regional championship to get to the national championships. Missouri Valley, North Central, and then you have this tournament, the women's or the Warrior Women's Open. It's exciting to see because you don't know who's going to show up in there, and it feels like we get three of the Midlands from the back in the day when Dan Gable had the Midlands and you had post collegiates. Now, as we've talked about, you have high schoolers, post collegiates, collegiates. They're all in one, and we're getting such great wrestling.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. I mean, just think about it. You have high school kids versus foreigners, in finals, and it's great.
And I think you brought it up. Here you have a U17 world champion in Taina Fernandez going against a 2024 Olympian from Nigeria in Fort Wayne, Indiana at a college open. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then 131, we have to talk about Sarah Savage. You brought this up a couple shows ago where Respicio from Providence pulled the upset the last time they wrestled national duels.
And Tector, yeah, and Tector.
And then this time around, Savage looked good in this tournament and dominated her way through. So credit to Savage for making some in-season adjustments and looking good at this tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I said it back the other episode as well, Respicio is very talented and has had some inconsistencies. She took out Savage. She had, with a little bit of a, got some good turns. And some exposures, and Savage made adjustments, so it's a good win for her to see get that match back, and I'm sure they'll go at it again at some point. But that was a good job by her.
As we look down the line, 124, Katie Gomez 3-0 win over Joanna Vanderwood in the finals. Begs the question, are you sure that she would beat Cristelle Rodriguez, Scott? I'm not so sure anymore. I think this is maybe a dead heat. Cristelle Rodriguez, if you go back to her U20 World Championship run, she looks so sharp. We don't know where she is right now, but if you get that Cristelle Rodriguez and Katie Gomez moving up a weight class, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, I was going to reassess that one anyway, just on my own, lying in bed. It popped into my head, and I'm like, maybe it's hard to go up a weight, and Rodriguez has been exceptionally solid and really not lost to anybody she should have, performed very well in these international world championship tournaments. So, I mean, I think a lot of Gomez, but I'm not so sure I would, before I was going to give that to Gomez, and I'm reassessing that. I think it would be a very good match and probably have to give the edge to Rodriguez.
And we don't know if Gomez is going to stay at 24. She might move down to 117. So we'll see how that one plays out. Youth movement is prevailing. We talked about Taina Fernandez getting second at 138, but the first two weight classes, Jaclyn Bouzakis, will bring her up again. She dominates and beats a returning college national champion in Olivia Shore in the finals 12-4. Jaclyn Bouzakis doing Jaclyn Bouzakis things, Scott. She just keeps rolling. We see her at these college opens and she keeps winning.
Yeah, I mean, she's just very solid. She has a good repertoire, relentless on top, very good on her feet, good stance. Olivia Shore, I haven't seen much of her recently, national champ, but I just hadn't seen a lot of her. That's a solid win. That's a very good win for Bouzakis. And, she's, we'll see where she is, how much she grows and where she is, when she can jump into that 50 kilo senior level and start to, place in tournaments like that. Probably has a little more development to do, but probably not all that much. I mean, she's just going to, she gets stronger and bigger. She's going to be very tough. She really is.
Morgan Turner at 110. 110 is the weight class in college wrestling right now. It's the toughest top to bottom. I would have to say if Audrey Jimenez, she's not going to be at the college nationals for either of them because Lehigh's waiting, hopefully, to go D1. I think Morgan Turner is the best 110-pounder in college. She's a high school junior right now. I think she could win it. I know there's some tough girls in Sage Mortimer and Anea Falcon, but I think when you look at results like this where she dominates and then she pins Paige Morales, who was a national number one out of high school, I just think she might be the best right now. Audrey Jimenez, I'm still giving her the edge, but I think it's 50-50 if they wrestle. I think right now it's 1 and 2 between Audrey Jimenez. What do you think?
First of all, I'd love to see Turner wrestle Jimenez, but I'm not just taking Mortimer out of the equation yet. I'm not just handing the win to Turner. She's looked very good. Obviously, Morales is very accoladed and very solid and has had good results. But, in college, she's yet to win national titles. She's in a little bit of that's right below in a solid weight class. And I think Turner is very good. But she can be a little sloppy at times. She's relentless, but you've seen her in the international tournament. She makes mistakes. And Mortimer is pretty experienced and savvy. So, who's taken out Chavez a couple of times. So, how would Tamara Chavez do against Turner? I think Chavez would handle her, in my opinion. So, unless she gets headlocked and pinned, So, I'm not giving this to turnover like Mortimer yet, but she's, very impressive again, and she wants it real bad and takes sport very seriously. Obviously, he's being trained, by Jordan Burroughs, among others, and she's going to keep getting better.
Interesting, because I agree. I think when you look at Sage Mortimer, she has a skill set where she is absolutely relentless through the course of a match. So unless you've experienced that, that's going to be hard to deal with because even if she gets down 8-0 or 6-0, whatever it is, you know that she's going to be firing back. I think of all of those that you mentioned, though, if Chavez is on her game, she's the best. I mean, she can.
When she's on. Yeah,
she's incredible. She has so many great moves. So if she can be on and be that Samara Chavez, she's going to be as good as anyone.
Yeah, and keep in mind, Mortimer was getting killed by Umi Ito, who's exceptionally good from Japan, and stuck her. So she's never out of a match. But I just don't even see at this point. I could be dead wrong. I don't see, just Mortimer going out on the mat with. Turner, and Turner's getting up 8-0, in a flash. I think she would have to work for points against Mortimer. Mortimer's pretty experienced and makes adjustments pretty well.
When you look at Turner, what do you like about what she brings to the match? You mentioned she works with Jordan Burroughs, and we've seen her skill level develop, and she's a physical wrestler. Where do you think she needs to improve to get to that next level?
At times she could get a little out of position, be a little sloppy at times, but she's very aggressive, very explosive, and she's getting better. Years ago it was a lot more headlocks and things like that. Now her leg attacks are getting better. Her defense is getting better. I think she's got to tighten some things up, some mistakes that might get exploited, but at times just a little out of position, little sloppy things. But, sometimes you can tame an aggressive wrestler, you can't always create one, right? So I'd rather have a wrestler that's overly aggressive and you can tweak things and work on some positional things than somebody that doesn't attack enough and doesn't open up. So I love the way she opens up and is very aggressive.
Love your take. It'd be interesting to see. I think I really do. I think Morgan Turner would have the opportunity. Of course, I'm not saying 100% it could happen. Nothing is guaranteed, but I think she could win college nationals if given the opportunity. She's in junior in high school, so it would be fun to see. And good litmus test here with a pin over Paige Morales.
Absolutely, because Morales is very good. I mean, we're just going to keep talking about the same thing week after week, the youth movement, and we can add different names on a given week. Somebody else pops in, but this is what's happening. I mean, we have seniors that are getting better, but they better look behind their back because these younger wrestlers are just achieving a lot and just wrestling very well at very young ages.
And that's on top of Bastiak getting third at 145. These are high schoolers. Maddie Neuenhuis getting fourth. And then Talia Guntram, who's not even ranked nationally in the girls' high school ranking. She got fifth at 124. So again, the youth movement is coming. They're getting better. They're invested. They have the resources. When, like you said, when you are training with Jordan Burroughs, when you're in high school, that's only going to make you better.
Well, how can it not, right? I mean, he's arguably the GOAT or close to it. And also I would just add, it's also an attitude thing. These ladies have to go out there and believe they're going to compete and win. You can't over-respect somebody, and these are all, whether it's Turner, Bouzakis, Fernandez, they go out there to win. They're not, oh my God, I'm wrestling a senior. They go out there looking to win and looking to attack. And again, you can't really teach that. That's got to come from the athlete, and it's very impressive.
And I think on the opposite end, I think a lot of the college girls know who they are and can be intimidated by the high schooler in this situation.
Well, you don't really have much upside, right? You're supposed to be the high schooler, and then you get tied if all of a sudden you're losing. You and I talked about it. The Nigerian, I don't think she was expecting. I'm not saying she didn't know who Fernandez was or didn't think she might be good, and watch her march through the bracket. But I thought she, was probably, I mean, I'm not trying to be a mind reader, but I would think she thought she could handily control that match, which she did at the beginning, but Fernandez had no quit and, kept coming, and she got a little tired. So it's a lot. And then you start getting tight. You're saying, oh my God, am I really losing to a high school? Is this really going to happen? I'm going to blow this match to a high schooler. And it puts a lot of pressure. There's nothing to lose really for the high schooler. The pressure is on the senior athlete.
Transition to the McKendree duels. We're interested in this just because we don't know what lineup McKendree's going to have. We don't know what lineup Grand Valley State's going to have. Both teams did not have their best lineups, but you got to give it to Grand Valley State. They defeated McKendree 28-15. There was no Kaylin Albrecht. There was no Tristan Kelly, but I'm of the opinion that this is a team sport, especially in duels, is that when you put your team on the mat, a dual score is a dual score. You got to give the win to Grand Valley State, no matter what personnel you have right there. Got to credit them. McKendree had a quality tournament in national duels. They got third, so credit to Jake Short and his program for getting a nice win.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there were injuries or other conflicts, but, all you can do is wrestle the people that are put out in front of you. And it was a great job by Grand Valley State. Again, we both said this isn't the perfect McKendree, lineup, but, kudos to Grand Valley State. And it's good that we're seeing these just, upstart programs that are competing and pressuring and beating some of the more established ones.
Not that they would take my advice on this, but if I had any piece of advice for McKendree, move Tristan Kelly up to 207. It's your best chance at getting a national champion. I think that's the best way of Tristan Kelly. Why go into 180? Why try to go against some landmines there, especially when you have one of the best in the world in Kylie Welker? Go up to 207 and get your national title.
I think that would make sense. She's not going to take out, with all due respect, but she's not going to take out Welker at this point. Welker just looks really good, and as do all the upper weights from Iowa. So, yeah, a lot of landmines up there. Sometimes best thing you can do is, I don't want to say run away, but just be tactical. There's nothing shy about saying, I have an absolute accoladed, solid wrestler that's going to be very tough to beat at this point. And go where you think you can win.
Yeah, Tristan Kelly's good. U23 national champion.
Amazing, yeah.
He's been right there. So go get your college national title. That's a big thing.
I think so.
As we talk about upstart programs, William Jewell started a couple years ago. They had a nice weekend. They won 22-22 over Division I Lindenwood on criteria. If you had to circle a match, that was the turning point. You have Alex Weitzman pinning an NAIA champion and Caitlin Jackson. So anytime you can top a D1 program and be a D2 program like that, especially when it's in state, you have to be excited about that. So Desiree Ramos, congratulations to her. That's a nice win for the program.
Yeah, very good win for the program, and it's solid program. A lot of these programs, it's hard to be great top to bottom, but a lot of these teams have very good wrestlers and put together decent lineups and have good results. And this is just going to keep happening, wider and wider and deeper, and other teams are going to compete. It's fun to watch this happen.
Iowa dominates as expected the journeyman duels. They were in Albany for 4 duels. It was interesting, Scott, because you saw a mix of first, second, and third stringers. When you look at it and you just think of Iowa top to bottom, I think if they had enough weights to field a team, I think they could get maybe they're going to get first. I think they could get second or third. I think they could have a top 10 team with their third stringers, if not a top 5 team. When you look at what they put on the mat, you have Ella Schmidt, who's a returning All-American. She's third string right now at 145. Got to give credit to some of the other programs. She took a couple losses over the weekend. Paige Wermeister teched Ella Schmidt, who's, as we said, an All-American, and Zoe Lentz pinned her in 14 seconds. So some nice wins there. But when you look top to bottom, what Iowa was able to do with a mix of their team, boy, it's just unstoppable.
What has hit my radar, at 124, Callie Lang, I had watched her a couple of weeks ago. She looked very scrappy, and she just keeps getting better. And she's, not mentioned a lot. She took at number 5, a list of Man. I think it's Man. If I pronounce it wrong, I'm sorry. She beat Allie Fitzgerald, who's had, was a Fargo champion and had very good college results. So she just keeps getting better and more consistent. So that's, I think, just you take one of the potentially weaker weight classes for Iowa, and you just have an athlete that's growing. I'm sure you're in that room all the time by osmosis and desire. You're just going to get better, and coaching. So that's good to see.
Complete developmental story too. I think she's closing in on wrestling 50 matches this year. I know at one point it was 40 when she wrestled in the duels a couple weeks ago. I think she's probably closing in on 50 matches. So that's a complete developmental story. So those are the ones that excite
Yeah.
you about how you can improve and get better in a college system.
Yeah, for sure. Like we can all talk about the accoladed ones that are going there already being, age group world champs or, final X champs, senior world medalists. But when you see an athlete that was, good and then breaks into the lineup, has a spot and just keeps getting better and then starts beating accoladed people, those are the good stories as well. And let's not lose sight of that. But she caught my radar. I've been watching her. I like the way she wrestles. She's tough.
Don't have many results on this. There were some impressive names, but I love it when you step outside of the traditional thinking. You just try to find innovative ways to have dual meets. Wyoming Seminary wrestled a Virginia All-Star team. Don't really have a lot of the results in front of me. I saw some from a dad, but I just think that's so healthy to think that way, to try to get the best competition and to try to step outside of just the traditional thinking of just what a duel can be and having these kind of all-star type meets.
Yeah, you have to do it. And I mean, it's, they have the Journeyman World Tournament where I know what Sem has competed and there's been some good athletes. They sent teams, I believe, to, Lady Clip-On in Sweden, to the Tallinn tournament in Estonia. But, you can't just always jump, to Estonia, right? So you got to try to do what you can domestically. And it involves being creative as, they need to have, especially some of these other high schools may have some very good wrestlers, but just not top to bottom. So if you can create these, all-star teams and patch together a tough team where you have a solid wrestler in every weight class, I think it's a win-win for everybody.
Talk about duels. Ryleigh Sturgill, who is ranked 14th in the country at 100 pounds. She forfeits her Tennessee girls high school season to wrestle in a regional boys duel at 113 pounds. So she weighed in at 106. She loses 11-8, but it ends up being the difference. Her losing by decision ends up allowing Baylor School to win 30-29, and then they go to the state dual championship. She still gets to wrestle in prep nationals. No matter what you think about this, it's pretty cool that one dual result like that, losing in that match 11-8, being competitive can be the ultimate outcome in a duel. That's what makes wrestling special. That's a cool story.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not like, she went out there and it was just like, hey, go out there and just don't get pinned, and you're losing 11-0. I mean, that was a competitive match. And you talk about taking one for the team. That is it. I'm sure the boys really respected that. She did have stuff to lose. I'm glad you and I talked about that she'll be, because I would have been like, really, that you talk about taking one for the team, that's insane. But I'm glad that she gets to compete in the national preps, because that would have been, that's, I don't love that rule. You compete in a boys match, you can't compete in any ladies matches. I don't like that, to be honest with you. The argument's probably, well, they have, a women's team, so why? Well, that should be enough. But in this case, I don't think it should prohibit her from wrestling, in the local, women's stuff. But hopefully she'll do well at national preps.
A different way to look at the youth movement. We talked about Bouzakis and Turner and Fernandez. They're wrestling in these college opens. You have a nationally ranked 100-pounder moving up to 113 and having some success against a 113-pound boy. To me, that just is another affirmation of how good these girls are getting in high school in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. And, now that we have more opportunities for the ladies, there's, less of it against the boys because they don't need it as much. But, if you need to do that to help a team or to get better competition, they're competitive. I mean, there comes a point when it gets, without getting into a biological discussion, it gets more challenging as the guys get older and go through the developmental phase, But at younger ages or lighter weights, before the guys get beastly, the ladies are competitive.
Also interesting is we've just learned through the Gigi Bragg story with her going with the boys team. We still are in that transition phase where girls are still catching up. You're not going to have all the girls that start out in wrestling start when they're 5 years old and have this developmental path and have the best coaching. They're still starting out. We still have to remember this is a new sport, and a lot of these girls are coming in and they don't know the rules necessarily, and they may be hitting a headlock without an arm and locking hands. So we are in this unique space where some of them are improving at lightning speed, but we still have to remember there's the tail of the sport where they're still getting involved, and we need to respect that part of the sport.
Yeah, absolutely. And you and I spent a lot of time, obviously, because, it's a show and we're talking about, the athletes that are big names or, the big results. But this really is, and the spirit of this, when we started Beat the Streets, and when these college teams and not necessarily Division One, the idea was participation in numbers. And women's wrestling is growing exceptionally fast, but that means when you field new teams in states that are young, relatively young, just getting sanctioned, or there weren't a lot of teams, you're going to have wrestlers that, aren't that good yet, or may never be that good, but still can add to camaraderie, can be a good asset to the team, can realize that it affirms them in other areas of self-confidence and growth. And that is the beauty of wrestling. It really helps you develop as an individual and a person. And, the winning is not just necessarily, who's a national champ. It's, how many people do we affect in a positive way and help them become better people that then spreads in their interactions with other people throughout their lives. And that really is what this is about in the big, big picture. Obviously we'd like to win and, make world teams and stuff like that. But the big picture, the participation is phenomenal. And with that, you're going to have a lot of less experienced athletes.
To your point, Andy Barth, who started Titan Mercury, a billionaire, he went to Columbia. His famous saying is they had 30 wrestlers on the team, and I was the 33rd best. So he was terrible. But again, the values that it instills, and that's what you want to see, is you want to see those girls that may not be the best. Maybe they have losing records. They stick with it, and then they continue on, and they understand the value of it. That's the end game that we love to see.
Yeah, and look how much, so Andy being successful in life, look at how the position it has put him in where he can help, so many athletes and empower them, and be a role model and just spread this around. So, yeah.